Hey guys, welcome back to Art Craftsmanship. My name's Dustin, and today in the shop I'm going to show you guys how to make a bowstring. So you can buy bowstrings from lots of different distributors online, but the nice thing about making your own bowstring is that you can buy the material that you need to make it and set up a relatively simple jig to be able to make your string at whatever length you want, and you can make hundreds of strings with the same amount of money that it would cost you basically to buy one or two strings. Today I'm going to show you how to do that. I have my material, I have my Dacron B50, which is the main bowstring I'll be using today. I have my jig and I have my bow that I'm going to measure from. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing you're going to need to know is the length of your bow. So to measure the length of the bow, you don't want to measure from the tip to the tip. You want to actually measure from your nocks from one end to the other end, because that's where the bow is going to be sitting. So for this bow, where my knock points are 67 inches. So the string that I'm using is Dacron B50, and this jig that I'm using is a jig that a buddy of mine, Sean Porter, made a bunch of years back for me. Sean just started a new YouTube channel called Crafting a Life I Want. So I'll put a link in the description below for his channel, and let's go over there and give him some love and get him making some more things and putting them up on his YouTube channel. So the first thing you do, I have a spot for my string to be held, and I just have a nail that holds it to start with. So from here you're going to bring the string down to your first nail and then come up to the measurement you want. So here I have all my measurements along the way. These measurements, the string length that I want is 67, so I have a 66 and a 68, so I'm going to go up to the 68. And what this is doing is, this is making my string the correct length to add on some additional material. So if I were to just cut this in measurement, it would seem longer than 68 inches. Now the reason for that is that you need to leave some additional material on each end of your string to be able to make a Flemish twist or do some material for a timber hitch. So what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to do 5 strands, and I'll do this 3 times. So I'll end up with a bowstring that's 15 strands of Dacron. So I've gone up the first loop, I went up to my number 1 loop. This one I'm going to go up to my number 2 loop. And I'll come all the way around, and I'll do this 5 times, each time going down to a different loop. But I'm continuing to go back to 68 each time. Now on my 3rd pass, back to the end and back to the 68. Back to the bottom nail again, back up for my 4th pass. And I'll go back for my last pass, which will be my 5th string, and up to 5. So now all I have to do, I'll just hold this here. I'll go ahead and hold that, and then I'm going to cut with my knife straight down the middle, which already has a path here. And I like to kind of push down to these strings to make sure they're nice and flat. All right, now that I have this first bundle made, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. And I have a chunk of beeswax. I'm going to use this to wax all of my strings together. So right now I have them all the same. I'm just going to put my thumb on the wax and draw out 5 or 6 times both sides. Just get these nice and waxy. And what this does will help to bundle all of these strings together, but it'll also help to protect the strings from water and moisture, anything that could penetrate in and ruin your bowstring you want to protect it from. So again, I'm just putting this over my thumb and just drawing it through the beeswax. I'll flip it over and do the same thing to both ends of the bowstring. All right, that's my 2nd bundle. I'm going to go ahead and wax this one, and then we'll move on to the 3rd bundle. Oh, looks like I might just barely have enough to make it work. Oy, oy, oy. All right, we're a little bit short. We're about 6 or 8 inches short. So I'm going to just make a few adjustments to the string. I'll take this off, bring it down to here and make the adjustments. That should make up enough string for that last bundle. All right, well, unfortunately I wasn't really happy with the way this was working out. I tied it a few other times, tried to get it to work for that 5th strand, and it just wasn't working. But fortunately, my buddy Sean only lives about 10 minutes away. He's the one who made this string jig, and he did have some extra Dacron B50, so I stopped by his place and picked up enough to do just this 5th strand. So we'll go ahead and tie this on, run this 5th strand, and we'll be good to go. I have my final string now, my final bundle. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my other 2 bundles. And once again, these are 3 bundles of 5 strands each, which will give me a 15 strand string in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and even up all 3 ends. So that way they're even. And these strand bundles are just about 15 inches longer than my final bowstring length. So I want to make sure I have enough extra on both sides to be able to do my Flemish twist. So I'm going to measure down from the end 7.5 inches to start my Flemish twist. A Flemish twist works really nicely in bow making because it wants to hold itself together. When you spin the bundles in opposite directions and back over themselves, then they want to hold together. The same way it would work if you just had a string, if you've ever had a kite or a string that gets kind of spun up while you're using it. And then when you put it back onto itself, it wants to spin back around itself like that. And that's the way a Flemish twist works. When you have these opposite spinning strands, they all want to go back and spin back up on themselves and stay together. So it's really good for a bowstring. When you're spinning a Flemish twist, this is going to be just a little bit more complicated because it's 3 bundles instead of 2. You can do it with 2. But basically what you do is you take your first bundle and you just spin it off to the right and then pass it back over your other bundles to the left. And you just continue the same thing. So now I have a new bundle on the right. I'm going to spin it to the right, pass it all the way to the left. Continue for your 3rd bundle, spin to the right, pass to the left. And you can do this the opposite way if you're opposite-handed, but I'm right-handed, so I always spin to the right and pass to the left. I'm just going to continue this out about 2.5 inches, which will give me a loop that is 1.25 inches long for my bottom knock. So now I have my 3 bundles from my original strands and the end of my loop. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this loop over my file here that's just holding this on. And I'll put both of these together. So now I have a bundle with each of my end strings. I'm just going to kind of separate them out so they're together. Just kind of squeeze them a little bit because they have the wax on and it'll hold them together nicely. Now I have my 3 bundles again, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just spinning my right bundle to the right, passing it over all 3 bundles to the left. Spin the new bundle to the right, pass to the left, spin to the right, and pass to the left. And I'm just going to continue this down through the end of each of my tapered strings. And this shows you where now that where I did my tapering and all the strings ended at different points, when I finish this Flemish twist all the way down, it'll be an even taper instead of being a blunt end. So this will taper down back to my initial string width. Now that I have my taper all the way down, there's a few loose ends that I'll just trim off later, but those are all the ends of the string. So the Flemish twist is tapered all the way down. Now I want to come down and I'll just give it a nice tug. That'll tighten everything up inside that Flemish twist. And so now that I've finished this, this one end, each of my strands has a bunch of twist in it because I've been twisting it the whole time. So I'm just going to release them, make sure each one of them separately, and then I'll just follow each strand down, each bundle down. So go down about 6 or 8 inches, make sure it's not twisted. I'll unspin it, go down another 6 or 8 inches, unspin it till I see all the strands are flat and not twisted, and keep going down 6 or 8 inches each time, measure out, and just untwist each bundle. Now that I'm to the end and I have all my twists out of my strand, I'm going to add some back twist into it, and that's just to account for the Flemish twist to the other end. So the other end Flemish twist is going to add strand. It's going to add spiraling and spinning back into the strings. So to account for that, I'm just going to go ahead and give this about maybe 15 or 20 back spins. That way when I get to the other end, it'll take those spins out of it, and I should end up with a pretty even, not twisted strand. Just go ahead and put this one off to the side, so that way I don't lose those twists. And I'll do my other two strands the same way. Now I have all my bundles ready, and they're all twisted in the opposite direction. I want to measure out. So my bowstring, I want it to be 67 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out to my 67. And I'll add about a ½ an inch at this point to start my Flemish twist. So I'm out at 67.5, which leaves me a tail that goes out to about 75 inches, which is exactly my 7.5, so that's perfect. All right, so I'm gonna follow the same exact steps this time, except for I'm gonna make my loop a little bit bigger. This will be on the top limb, which will be able to come on and off. So I'm gonna make this loop, I'm gonna measure it 3 inches before I start back on itself. Now you can see as I finish up, my initial 3 bundles are all back to being pretty much even, not twisted much together at all. Now that I have my bowstring finished with both Flemish twists, I do want to add some twist into the entire string. So I'm going to do the same way that I took out the twist. I'm just going to add a little twist, walk down 6 or 8 inches, add a little bit more twist, and go all the way to the end, so all of my strands are all twisted evenly together all the way down. There we go, 67 inches. This is my top limb, so this is the loop that I made a little bigger, and this way I can slide it down onto the limb, so then I can put on my bottom knock, which is a smaller loop and tighter. This one should be just big enough to get over the end of this limb, which I will be trimming down and shaping a little bit, but for now, it's a perfect size, nice and tight fit. That doesn't need to move anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and give this a test on the bow. This will also stretch out the string as I test it. So you can see it's still a little too long, but it is stretching, getting everything nice and tight inside those Flemish twists. So I'll go ahead and take this off, slide it down, take it off the bottom loop, and give it a few more twists. And I'll keep kind of doing that process until the bow is strung the right way before I do my serving in the middle of the string. The last thing we're going to do on this bowstring is we are going to add some serving to the middle 6 inches. And serving string is this green nylon string I have. I'm just going to wrap it really tightly and neatly all the way down the middle 6 inches of this bowstring. So I want to make sure I put serving string over that area because that's where I'm going to be knocking my arrows, it's where I'm going to be pulling on it, and I'm going to be handling the middle of the bowstring there a lot. So I really want to protect that bowstring, that inner core of the bowstring, from getting any damage. Any damage to that there could just result in your bowstring exploding on you in mid-draw, and that's the last thing you want to happen. So we're going to go ahead and serve this middle area and finish up the string. Go ahead and find the middle, and then I'll measure from the middle out 3 inches, find that spot and just put a little crimp in it, and that's where I'm going to start my serving. The way this serving jig works is that it holds the spool of serving string and it holds tension. So I have a wing nut here that I can add or decrease the tension. Now I want the tension to be tight enough that as I'm spinning this around, it doesn't want to come out on its own. If I grab it and pull on it, I can pull it out. So you just add some tension, and what I'll do is I'll lay this down. I'll pull about 12 inches or 18 inches or so out, find my starting spot, and I'll lay it down on my string. So now I can start just spinning this serving jig around my string. Now it takes a little bit to get it started sometimes. Once you're started, then you can see it's just going to wrap around the middle of the string. And it's a little tight right now, so I'm going to loosen just the wing nut just a smidge, and I'll keep on wrapping. What I'm going to do is just pull out a scrap piece about 1 foot or so and go ahead and cut it off. First thing I did at this point, I have my new tag end and I just trimmed off my old tag end. So this part's a little tricky, so I'm going to take my time and show you how I do it. So first thing you want to do is give yourself a loop. Now you want to be able to keep spinning this as you pull it back through itself. So you're going to bring the loop over and underneath. We're going to wrap your new tag end around the string inside of the loop about 8 or 10 times. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one more time, and 8. Now I'm going to take the remainder of this string and pull it down here and hold it along the serving string. Now I'll pinch here, right below it where I started before, and I'll continue with my string now here. And I'll just continue down spinning. So again, it's a little tricky. Sometimes it's better to have your string in a jig where you can clamp both ends, but I'm just doing this on one end, but that's okay. So we'll go ahead and start this spinning again, going back to right where we were. And what I'm doing now is I'm unspinning the twist that I put here around the bowstring. I'm going to keep on going until I've taken all those twists out. Keeping it tight, but not super tight. All right. Now we're back to my initial loop. And then we'll take the tag end on the other side, hold this nice and tight, and pull this whole string back through. Pull that until it goes right to the end. Give it a nice tight pull. And now that's locked into itself, so I can just go ahead and trim this off, burn it flush, and we'll be good to go. It'll be locked in place. All right, guys, well, this turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. It was a good refresher for me to remember how I used to make bowstrings a couple years ago. This was fun to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the new bow, and then we'll jump ahead and I'll show you some shots of us using the new string shooting the bow. All right, it's the next day and it's a beautiful day out. So we're gonna go ahead and string this bow up with the new bowstring that we just finished. So when I made the two ends, I made one loop a little smaller. So that loop is going on my bottom limb, and that's one's gonna stay on that knocking point. My top loop was a little bit bigger, and that way this can slide up and down on this upper limb. And this works really well for the push-pull method, which is the way I prefer to draw most of my bows. So I'm gonna pull in the handle, push in the upper limb, and slide that string up at the same time. And that's a nice, safe way to string the bow. And a good rule of thumb when you're stringing your bow, to know that your bows are on the right length, your bowstrings are on the right length, is to make a thumbs up, put your hand right on the handle, and that bowstring should rest anywhere between the middle of your thumb to the tip of your thumb. And that's kind of the good distance. This one might be a little bit low, but I think it's strung really nicely for this bow. All right, guys, well, thanks so much for watching. This has been a fun build. I really enjoy making strings. This one was made specifically for this bow, and just both the Flemish Twist turned out really well, and it's a nice strong string, and it feels really good when I draw it back. So if you're interested, you can also check out the bow making video where I did this specific bow, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. So if you haven't already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and also follow us on Instagram for some more pictures of other things I build. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Fire.
Thank you.
Not bad.